Astro Airlines, a case of how leadership is shifted through moments and decisions, and how management influences on the outcome of a company. Welcome to our group presentation, Activity 3, Leadership Mini Case, in the class Business Leadership. In this presentation, we would like to present the Astro Airlines case study and analyze the leadership style of the founder and CEO, Arthur Behavior. Briefly summarizing the case, Astro Airlines, founded in 1980 by Arthur Burton, thrived early with low-cost fares, team-based work, and employee ownership. Rapid growth brought operational issues, strained leadership, and declining service. Burton's push for international expansion ignored competition and internal challenges, leading to financial losses. By 1986, the airline filed for bankruptcy. Now, let's analyze Arthur Burton's leadership style and management strategies through the company's lifespan. At the start of the company, many regarded him as an inspirational leader due to his dynamism, speaking abilities, and firm values, positioning him as a charismatic leadership with a clear transformational standpoint. Soon enough, this transformational values seemed vanished at the crisis years once Burton started to make irrational decisions and take action on over-optimistic strategies that lead to the company's fall of bankruptcy, even to such extent as being described a dictator by his employees.
Let's take a closer look at Astro Airlines and how Arthur Burton's leadership evolved over time to answer the question, was he a charismatic leader? Astro Airlines began with remarkable success. From 1980 to 1983, Burton's visionary approach disrupted the airline industry. His low-cost, no-frills model and dynamic leadership energized employees and drove rapid growth. In just 3 years, the company expanded from 3 planes to 22, thriving on his bold vision and the enthusiasm he inspired. However, between 1983 and 1985, the company's growth outpaced its ability to manage itself. Burton resisted creating formal structures and hiring experienced managers, which led to communication problems, insufficient training, and growing employee dissatisfaction. The initial optimism began to fade as organizational issues emerged. By the mid-1980s, Burton's leadership style became more autocratic. He dismissed dissenting voices and pursued aggressive international expansion without consolidating the company's foundation. This overreach, combined with increased competition, led to financial losses, strained employee morale, and ultimately, bankruptcy. So, was Burton a charismatic leader? Absolutely, at least in the beginning. He was visionary, inspirational, and capable of rallying his team around a bold future. Employees believed in his vision and felt empowered to achieve it. However, charisma alone isn't enough for long-term success. Burton's refusal to adapt and his authoritarian shift alienated employees and undermined his leadership. While he embodied many traits of a charismatic leader, his inability to evolve turned his strengths into liabilities, ultimately contributing to the downfall of Astro Airlines.
What dysfunctional aspects of charismatic leadership were displayed by Burton? Arthur Burton's leadership at Astro Airlines was a key reason for the company's early success. He had this incredible energy, a strong vision, and he really inspired his employees. But over time, his leadership started to show some serious flaws. At first, his confidence and vision drove the company forward, but as Astro grew, Burton's decisions became more about expanding quickly than actually addressing the operational problems that came with that growth. For example, instead of focusing on improving the internal systems, he pushed ahead with acquisitions and more routes, ignoring the competitive challenges from larger airlines. What's also important here is that Burton didn't handle criticism well. He became resistant to feedback. When employees or senior managers pointed out issues, he didn't listen. In fact, he fired people just for questioning his decisions. This really set up an environment where people were too afraid to speak up, which only made things worse. As the company grew, it needed more structure, more experienced management, things Burton wasn't willing to bring in. He stuck to his original, more informal style, which worked when the company was small, but wasn't enough as it expanded. It left a lot of employees overworked and frustrated because they weren't getting the training or support they needed. And as things got harder, Burton's approach started to feel manipulative. Employees began questioning whether he was really looking out for them or just trying to hold on to control. It wasn't just the lower-level employees either. Some of the company's top executives ended up leaving because they couldn't work with him anymore. Instead of fixing the internal issues, Burton tried to re-energize the company by pushing for even more growth. He thought that adding more routes and planes would fix everything, but it only made things worse. The company wasn't prepared for that level of expansion, and it ultimately led to their downfall. So, while Burton was incredibly charismatic and driven, he didn't know how to transition from being a visionary leader to someone who could handle the complexities of a larger organization. And that's why Astro Airlines couldn't keep up and eventually went bankrupt.
What challenges did Astro Airlines face due to rapid growth and informality? The rapid growth of the company created some serious organizational problems. Employees of Astro Airlines thought that after the initial chaos of starting a company, things would settle down and the heavy workloads would decrease. Instead, they started having a lot of communication problems and workload became even more overwhelming. Too many decisions had to be made by top management. This was all due to the informality of the company and the lack of structure. As every aspect of the company grew, Burton didn't hire as many capacitated managers, and instead he kept hiring non-supervisory employees. Instead of having a long chain of command for a rapidly growing company, they kept the short chain of command that they had initially. Burton refused to hire other experienced managers that had work experience somewhere else and instead promoted current employees that didn't have the capacity to make the decisions that needed to be made. Managers could not get issues resolved and started spending too much time in meetings instead of training the rapidly growing number of employees to give them the skills to provide quality service, rotate among different departments, and use team management practices. Due to this, they started having operating problems like canceled flights and a decline in customer service that negatively impacted the company's reputation. Another problem emerged for Burton in 1982, as the president of the company resigned, and instead of looking for a replacement, Burton decided to take his responsibilities on top of the ones that he already had. By this point, he was in charge of strategic planning and operational management. This led to a lot of necessary changes in management processes to not be implemented, as the position of the president was not yet filled, and Burton had too much on his plate. Burton couldn't seem to transform Astro Airlines from an entrepreneurial startup to an established company. Burton wanted to keep growing instead of consolidating his company. They kept adding more routes, getting more planes, and hiring more employees to compete with bigger airline companies. These companies were prepared to conduct a long price-cutting war to protect their market position. Astro Airlines didn't have the financial ability to do this, so they started experiencing more losses than profits. Internal problems worsened in 1985 as pilots were quitting, complaining that they were exploited and mistreated. Burton was accused of being a manipulator and dictator. Due to this, a founding executive left the company and took employees with him to start a new airline.
How did these challenges impact the company's employees and overall performance? Astro Airlines started with a bold vision. Arthur Burton wanted not only to make air travel affordable, but to create a workplace where employees felt valued and empowered. And at first it worked. The enthusiasm was contagious. Employees felt inspired, and the airline grew quickly, 22 planes in 3 years. But that rapid growth came with challenges. Employees were overworked, expecting things to improve after the initial chaos. But they didn't. The company didn't build the structures it needed to manage such rapid expansion. New hires weren't given enough training, and managers were overwhelmed, spending too much time in meetings and unable to focus on solving problems. This lack of support led to real issues. Flights were cancelled, customer service suffered, and the airline's reputation took a hit. Pilots, feeling overworked and underappreciated, attempted to unionize. Many left the company entirely. Internally, the pressure grew. Burton's leadership, once seen as inspiring, began to feel controlling. Key executives left, taking employees with them, and Burton's decisions became increasingly disconnected from what the company needed. Ultimately, all of this impacted the airline's performance. Customer loyalty declined, financial losses mounted, and by 1986, Astro Airlines declared bankruptcy. The story of Astro Airlines is a reminder of the importance of balance. Growth is exciting, but without strong structures, proper training, and support for employees, even the most innovative ideas can collapse.
Thank you all for your attention and for taking the time to explore the fascinating journey of Astro Airlines and Arthur Burton's leadership with us. We hope this presentation has provided valuable insights into the power and the limitations of charismatic leadership. If you have any questions or thoughts, we'd love to hear them.